for offering that.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited that we're able to do it. You know, when we first put that initial introductory course online, it was just what we had available from the level 1 that we could provide to people online. And, you know, that was before people figured out how to do pretty much anything online if you have to, right? So then we were like, well, we may as well give them the rest of it so that they can have the whole, you know, otherwise you have to start over and do a whole level 1. So
yeah, and it's great to not have to travel and you still have the interaction. You guys have been so smart in how you set it up. So it's really cool.
And it's fun for me because, you know, people are all moving through at their own pace, and I'm seeing their thinking as it shifts over because, you know, in a level 1 training, it's 4 or 5 days of nonstop. And I am constantly putting material out, and I don't get as much of a chance to interact with each person. Yeah. Whereas this, because people are going slowly over time and we're sort of having these online conversations, it's a different kind of connection.
That's awesome. And more time to digest the material too.
Absolutely. And even what we've done with the cohort, like the ones that are more live online, we've spread those out too. So instead of, I mean, who wants to be online for 5 days straight? Nobody. No. So, you know, if we do it a couple hours here, a couple hours there, then people get to not only digest, but apply the material in between sessions. So really it's opening up options for how to do this differently, which I think is great. I just did do a level 1 training in person, masked and distanced.
Oh my gosh.
Because some people want, you know, they learn better that way, or, you know, it's much more hands-on for sure. So, you know, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think the online stuff is going away, but I think we're just going to end up offering people a variety of different ways to learn, which should have been how we were doing this before, but
well, we didn't know how many people would be excited to train online or open to it. And there was more skepticism about, can yoga even be taught online?
Exactly. And then when we were forced to, we realized, well, actually, you know, quite a bit of this can be done. Yeah. So I am going to pull up the questions that were submitted in advance, because I have a couple of those and I always start there, and then I will open up the floor to any other questions that you all have. Okay. All right, so the first question is about the level 2 training, which is the mentored practicum. So I will say that this is something that I believe does get covered in level 1. So if you're rusty because it's been a while since you've been in level 1, then we have material. There's, I believe, a whole page on the website about level 2. I might even have a short video where I explain it, and there's definitely documentation about it. And if you express interest in level 1 via email, Posey will send you all the instructions and everything you need to know. But I will just do a brief little overview, which is that the way that I see it, the level 1 training is an overview. It's a lot of information, but it's a survey of, you know, the impact of arthritis across all of the koshas and how yoga can address whole person well-being for people with arthritis. I personally, and this, of course, I'm invested in the topic, but I think every yoga teacher should know this much. Every yoga teacher should understand how to work with people of varying physical abilities. Every yoga teacher should know how to keep people safe. Every yoga teacher should know about joint conditions, because there is no way you are teaching yoga and not working with people who have joint conditions, because it is that prevalent. So I see level 1 as sort of a toolkit that you should bring back into your general yoga classes, beginner classes, gentle classes, therapeutic classes, chair classes, all of that stuff. And just an orientation toward how am I thinking inclusively, even in the more vigorous types of practices that you offer. You still, of course, want to make people, feel comfortable and stay safe and all of those things. Also, when you've done level 1, you can offer the evidence-based 16 class series in your community and call it Yoga for Arthritis. And, the more you do that, the more skilled you get at working with that population. I think that once you finish level 1, you still have a long way to go in terms of developing your skills and expertise. But the same thing is true when you do your initial yoga teacher training. It's just a start. There's so much more to learn and do. If you, especially when you do your practice lab for level 1, you will notice things, especially now we have the new online format. If you're recording yourself teach and then you watch yourself teach, you're going to see things. Your instructor, who in the online training is me, I'm going to point things out to you of, here are some things that you do really well, and here are some places that you could use a little more practice. Level 2 is for that purpose. So level 2 is incredibly applied. It's no more didactic learning. It's all about your applied skills. So you get connected with a mentor, and we have a handful of mentors who've been doing this work forever. The entire thing is 40 hours. 40 hours includes the teaching that you do, the planning that you do for that teaching, the reflection that you do about that teaching, the work that you do with your mentor in between the teaching. So all of that all together adds up to 40 hours. There also are some allowances in that. So you can say, okay, I'm going to teach this many classes and I'm going to record, the first one and the last one, and I'm going to meet with my mentor and review them together and reflect on them. And it can all be focused on your teaching. You can also specifically, when looking at your teaching, choose to focus on something specific. So some people who are yoga therapists really want to focus on developing a care plan for people with arthritis and making sure that that's appropriate, and how do I adjust it, and how do I make sure I have all the information for the intake. So that whole process. Some people really want to develop skills like, how do I talk about the science in my teaching, or how do I infuse philosophy in the way that I teach, or how do I teach some people in a chair and some people on the floor. So you can focus your mentorship on developing very specific skills. You can also use a portion of the mentorship. So some of it has to be teaching and reflection on your teaching, but you can also use some of those hours to write up a case of somebody you worked with who had a dramatic shift, and you think that might be of interest to something like Yoga Therapy Today, or one of the yoga magazines, might find that of interest. You can use it to develop evidence-based marketing materials. So to write up some, a brochure that talks about the science of how yoga can help people with arthritis, which might be for potential students, or it might be for referrals. That's another part of the mentorship, can be, how do I build a referral network? How do I get, chiropractors and physical therapists and acupuncturists to start sending students and clients to me? That can be a part of it too. So I believe it's 10 hours of the 40 hours can be for some of those other activities that are not specifically your teaching development. When you sign up for the level 2, you pay a registration fee with us. And so I think that might be in the, where you go, where the page that has all the trainings on it. probably has that level 2 registration page, or if not, it's on the page that talks about level 2, but Posey can definitely show you where to find it. But once you've paid that level 2 registration fee, which I believe is $50, then Posey will set the wheels in motion for you to get connected with a mentor. You can also tell us if you have preference, if there's already a mentor that you know that you want to work with, or you know that you want to work with somebody who XYZ, has certain skills, has certain experience, whatever. And we'll pair you with a mentor. And then the remainder of the fee for the level 2 training, you'll pay directly to the mentor. The level 2 mentorship is necessary in order to do level 3, obviously. So your mentor will sign off on you, basically say, this individual has accomplished what we would hope for her, usually it's her, to accomplish in level 2, and she's ready now to move on to level 3. Level 3, and I know the question was not about level 3, but just so you know what comes after that, level 3 is the last training in the series. It's always with me. It's usually a small group. You all have experience working with this population because you've at least done level 2, and you've probably done, done other work applying the material from level 1. And there's a lot of peer learning that goes on. So there is more of a focus on how do I specialize in this? How do I work with some of the other conditions that we don't talk as much about, beyond OA and RA? What is a way that I can uniquely live into this niche and learn more about certain segments of it? So each person picks a topic and kind of goes deeper and explores more about it and presents it to the group. And that can be, how to work with people with arthritis in the water. It can be, how to work with kids who have arthritis, or issues that come up when somebody also has diabetic neuropathy and arthritis, or, there are lots of things that you can do as sort of a topic that you explore a little bit more deeply. And before you do level 3, you've got to run that topic by me. And we also dig into the research a little bit more. And we look at case scenarios and how would you work with this person? What questions would you have about working with them? So it's a much deeper dive with a set of more expert peers. And when you finish level 3, you are certified yoga for arthritis instructors. So hopefully I answered the level 2 question. I don't know who asked it, but yeah, okay, great. Okay, and the next question is, I've taken a number of Zoom classes, but have never taught in that mode. Now that I'm beginning to arrange my practice class, okay, so that's the lab portion. Can you review some of the key things or light bulb moments you've had when teaching those with arthritis online? Okay, great question. All right, so if you are in either the bridge course or if you're in the self-paced level 1, you are going to have to teach online and record it and send it to me to review. And this is, for some people, I realize totally new, and there are so many things to think about. We've had people start to complete that portion. And one thing I will say is please be patient with yourself, because there's so much to think about in teaching people with arthritis at all. And then you add the technology to it, and it's a whole other layer of complication. I do not expect any of this to be perfect, but it's the best we can come up with in the current circumstances. Even if you didn't teach it online, which I think will start to become an option, you could teach it in a studio setting, but you'd still have to record it. And so you still have to deal with all the technology. And frankly, I think doing it online and pressing the record button is probably easier than trying to set up a camera and get a file and upload the file and, all of that. So, so one thing, make sure you press record. That's a big one. I have an entire blog post that is about, now it's about yoga therapy online, but the vast majority of it applies to yoga teaching online as well. And I'm actually going to pull that up right now and share the link in the chat. Just bear with me for a moment while I do that. Guidelines for yoga therapy online. And I'm going to explain some of those, the ones that apply, and then I'll add a few more thoughts to that. Okay, so there that is. All right, so one thing is that you have to have decent equipment in that. So right now I am wearing a headset, and I'm wearing a headset to make sure that you can hear me and I can hear you. It's not fancy, it's not expensive, but if you can't hear them or they can't hear you, then you've got a problem. And I have been to Zoom yoga classes where I could not hear the teacher. And so either I needed an external speaker so that I could turn it up further, you know, they're like far away from their computer. They're trying to use the microphone that's built into their computer and it's not good enough. So even if you have those earbuds that have a microphone in them, those should be fine. Or I have, let me see if I can pull this out. We'll show and tell. Okay, I have this snowball, which also not super expensive, and it's on a little kickstand thing. And when I'm teaching online and I'm way back there, I have this plugged in and I have it near me so that I don't have to wear a headset and everybody can hear me. And it has like 360-degree sound, and it also like avoids all the echoing and any of that stuff. So if you're going to be doing this for a while, I mean, if you're doing this for a one-time class, don't invest in equipment, just, you know, figure out what you need to make it work. But if this is something you're planning to do more, then it's worth a couple of investments. You know, a decent speaker, like this one works well. I'm sorry, a decent microphone and a decent speaker. And the speaker I have, I wasn't prepared for show and tell. So I just came back from that training, so it's probably still packed away, but I have an external speaker as well. It's a twist kind of a thing, and that plugs in and I can turn it up nice and loud. So if somebody has a question and I'm far away, I can still hear them, because in particular, my laptop, the speaker is not very good. And so if I don't have my headset on, I can't really hear people very well. So I have that external speaker too. Additionally, and lastly, I have an external camera, because so when you're teaching a yoga class, you need your students to be able to see the entire width of your mat. And they also need to be able to see you when you're sitting down and when you're standing up. And I have found that with my laptop, either they see me sitting down or standing up. So I would have to like sit down, do the sitting portion, come adjust the screen, go back, stand up, do that. Like my arms are cut off, my head's cut off. So you may want a camera that has a wider angle so that you don't have to worry, you know, as you move around, your students can see you. Okay, I said lastly, but there's going to be one more thing. The larger your class is, the smaller your students are. So if you're looking at your students in gallery view, which is the only way to see all of them, the more students there are, the smaller their tiles are. And when you're teaching yoga for arthritis, you need to be able to see your students. So one, limit your class size. Definitely limit your class size to how many fit on a screen, because if you have, you know, if you have a Zoom that has 40 people in it, you have to switch to a second screen. There's no way you can see everybody. So at the most, you should only have as many students as you can see at once. when you're doing your lab, if you're recording your lab, keep it very small. The smaller it is, I mean, you're going to realize if you haven't done much of this work, it is very challenging to pay attention to multiple people at a time. And you're trying to think about what's next, what's the wording you're going to use, what options are you going to provide? You know, all of that is so much to think about. You could do this with like 2 to 4 students, it would be plenty. So don't feel like you have to have an enormous class. It's a lot. Like if we do these practice labs in person, I do not let them have more than 10 because I mean, 10 is a lot to pay attention to at once. And that's 10 having an assistant who's a backup and catching what you don't catch. And even then people miss things that I have to say, time out, look over there. Do you see what's happening with that student? Because they get so caught up in their own instruction. And one of the things that I'm looking for is that you're paying attention to your students. So in the lab recording, keep it small, 2 to 4 students. But if you're doing this in real life, then I also have a second monitor. And so my monitor is larger than my laptop screen, knocking things over in my house. Okay, so what I do is I drag the Zoom over onto the larger screen, and that way I can see everybody in bigger tiles, because the bigger the screen is, the bigger the tiles are. So if I am going to be teaching 15 people at once, then I want to have that bigger screen so that I can see everybody, especially, I don't know about you all, but I'm nearsighted. So I'm back there. I also wear my glasses. So when I'm teaching in person in a studio, I never wear my glasses because the people are life size and I can see them fine. But when they're this big on a screen and I'm back there, I need my glasses to be able to see them. Okay, also, so that's all the technology stuff. People are going to be using household items as their props. So one, keep it simple. You're not going to expect people to be using 2 blocks and a strap and a wedge and 2 blankets and 2 bolsters and a folding chair and a mat. It's like, you know, it's like they need a utility closet for all of that. So think about what's absolutely essential. And this also applies to some in-person teaching. One, now that in many studios, people have to bring their own props, you're not expecting your students to bring a small truck worth of props to every class. It's got to be what fits in a bag, right? So we have these Yoga for Arthritis bags on the website, and we just did this at the last training. What could fit in one of those bags, which is like a reasonable size bag that you could throw on your shoulder, right? And it's 2 blocks, a strap, a yoga towel or a yoga blanket, and a wedge. And that's it. And that's enough. And not everybody needs the wedge, but some people really do. And the wedge sticks up out of the bag and it's fine. So, but that being said, you also don't want people to feel like they have to invest in a whole bunch of props in order to come to your class. So what are the household item equivalents of the props that you would use? If people have a folding chair or a chair that does not have arms and it doesn't have wheels, that's helpful. There's a whole lot you can do with just a chair. And then if you have a chair, you probably don't even need blocks. So maybe they need a chair, a pillow, and a throw blanket, right? And with that, probably you could do most things. Maybe you want like a necktie or something that they could use if you want to do anything with, you know, an extended leg or something like that. A necktie, you know, everybody has an ugly necktie that nobody is ever going to wear again. So if you can ask your students to gather those items beforehand and have them handy, then also when you're teaching, some people are going to have yoga props at home and some people are going to have household items. So then you say, grab your yoga strap or your necktie grab your bolster or your pillow, whatever it is that you have. So you want to make it accessible so that people can use items that they have at home. Find out whatever you can in advance. So, if you have an intake form, if you're doing stuff online, it's great to have like an online form that they can fill out so they don't have to get your PDF, print it, write all their stuff in, upload it, send it to you. Like that's a giant pain. So if you have the technology skills to create a Google form or a Microsoft form or something like that, and they can just insert their answers and it goes right to you, that makes it a whole lot easier. You do want to get the information that you can in advance because you can't have a sidebar conversation with anybody in an online class. There's no privacy. So, if you in an in-person class, people would come in and you sort of pull them aside and say, how is everything? Is there anything I should know? You can't do that online. So it's all the more important to get a check-in from people, whatever essential information there is. The alternative to that is that you can use the private chat function. So if you look at your chat right now, if you were to type in your chat, it's to everyone, but you could, I can click on Addie's name and I could type a message just to Addie and nobody else is going to see that. So I just wrote hi to Addie. And I think Cindy and Doris, you did not see that, right? Okay. So I could ask people to please right now type into the chat any joints that are bothering you, any health concerns that I need to be aware of. So if you are doing a drop-in, you could use that as an alternative to being able to do a full intake. Obviously, the full intake is better. And it's one thing for a single class you're going to teach, but if you're working with people over the course of 16 classes, get some decent background information from them. You're also in an online environment. You're going to use more verbal instruction because when you're giving them verbal instructions, you can see them better and pay more attention to them. Whereas if you're demonstrating and you're turned and you're going, and you're way back there, it's harder to see them. And so what I tend to do is demonstrate something and then look and see how everybody's doing. And then I can give them feedback. They don't have to be staring at me standing in the pose, right? So I cue how we're going to get into triangle. And then I come look at everybody's triangle, encourage them to breathe, whatever I notice, relax your shoulder, whatever. So I can pay more attention to them than I can if I'm back there just standing in the pose for 5 breaths, does that make sense? Okay, I see head nodding, so that's good. Another thing is that chanting is, if any of you have tried to like sing happy birthday in an online Zoom party, it does not work. So if you want to do call and response, everybody should mute except for you. And then you do the chant and then you do it again. They're doing it with you, but their voices aren't interfering with each other. The alternative is that you can ask someone to be your response. So if I'm going to sing Om Shanti, and then Addie's going to sing back Om Shanti, and everybody else is muted. If you're going to do that, you have to wait a beat, because the way that you would normally in class do it, you start immediately after the person stops, but because there's a lag on Zoom, you're actually interfering with the person you think is finished because they're not finished to everybody else who's listening, if that makes sense. So you kind of have to make yourself hold a beat and then respond. So that's a little heads up about chanting. And yeah, okay, so those are the main things. And I sent you the link and that has more, but I hope that answers the question. I think, Doris, it was your question. Okay, great.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the seniors that I've been teaching didn't want to do Zoom. So we actually, of course, I'm in California. So we actually, since September, have been doing it outside.
Oh, nice. Well, you're in California, you could do that.
Yeah, and most of the time it's been okay. You know, if it's too cold or if it rained, you know, obviously we don't. But so the few seniors that I'm gonna do,
Mhm.
the biggest thing I noticed is they don't have the best equipment.
Right. Right.
And so I've been trying to figure out ways to help them, even maybe lend them
Or Doris,
one of my laptops. No,
just you. Oh, you mean technology equipment? I thought you meant yoga equipment because I was going to
no,
say
no,
just,
no.
Okay.
Yeah. So like they have very small, you know.
What about they usually have iPads. I find a lot of seniors have an iPad.
Well, not this one group.
Okay.
So anyway, so I'm just trying to work with them and figure out how to make it possible to do it.
And as I said, you really only need 2 to 4 students. So if that means that you do it with the couple of seniors, you know, who have a laptop, that's fine. I mean, it's not a community offering. It's for your educational purposes. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I did want to say, you know, if people are lacking equipment in terms of stuff at home, there's a whole lot you can do with just a chair. I know that's not the question you were asking, Doris, but I just want to make that point because, like, if you are offering yoga in a library or in a church basement or something like that, there is so much you can do with only a folding chair. You could do a full practice without any other equipment. So just, you know, if people are in that kind of situation, like we're going to be, hopefully, if it gets funded, doing a study looking at the effects of yoga for chronic pain in methadone clinics. And we're not going to have, you know, tons of yoga equipment. You know, if they have a mat and a folding chair, we are good. There's a ton we can do with just that. So, okay, great. Yes. And if you run into any hiccups in the process, Doris, reach out to Posey because she is quickly becoming an expert on how to deal with all of this stuff. Because she's also the person who's going to have to receive your file. So if, you know, when it comes to like the Dropbox or Google or how the file is saved or any of that stuff, she can help you out with that.
Okay.
All right. Other questions?
Stephanie,
yeah, hi. Go ahead, Cindy.
Hi, I was the one that asked the level 2 question, and I appreciate that. I wanted, but basically what I'm finding in my area is when I'm putting out information about classes, I'm getting a lot of response that people want individual classes, like personal training type classes.
Private sessions.
Yes, private, sorry. Yeah, I'm a personal trainer too, so I got the wrong lingo here, but private sessions. So is that something that I could work on in level 2 as well? Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
I was surprised by that in a way, but then
that's great, Cindy. I mean, I love that work. There's so much you can do when you have the opportunity to really tailor the plan for a single person.
Yes. So I wanted to ask that too. So yes, I think that's really something I'm considering doing because, and then the marketing stuff too. This is really a lot new to me. So I just want to be able to get the word out because it's such a great program and, you know, so, but I just wanted to ask that.
Well, it sounds like you are getting the word out if you're getting interested.
I mean, a little bit here and there, I guess that people have been calling and saying, you know, should we do this privately or I go to their house or they come to my house, you know, as long as we have the vaccine and all that other good stuff. But it's been good. And the people that have reached out have different ages and just feel more comfortable one-on-one, which is great. So, that would be helpful. So thanks again for all your help.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Cindy, when you do submit that initial registration, make a note of that's what you want to focus on because we'll make sure to connect you with the right mentor.
Great.
For that.
Thank you. Yes. It's exciting. I love it. I love the program. It helps me. I know how much it helps me too. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. So I appreciate it. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Addie, how about you? Is there anything I can answer for you?
I really just wanted to come and observe and
Yeah.
listen. I didn't really, actually, you answered some of my questions about the teaching online and how much to demonstrate and how to watch and how to get a bigger monitor. And the external speakers, that's been an issue. I'm a yoga therapist and I have been teaching privates on Zoom since the pandemic, and that actually works quite well. But one of the things I found is I have a microphone and they can hear me great, but I can't always hear them when they're away from their mat and they're using, you know, whatever equipment they have. And so I had not thought about getting the external speakers, but that could really help.
Yeah, so the one that I use is called the Twist. The only trouble, Addie, is if you have multiple students and one of them doesn't have a very good mic, and so they're relatively quiet, and so you increase the volume on your speaker in order to hear them, and then somebody else has a good mic and all of a sudden they're shouting at you. So it can take a minute to sort of set up your levels so that
The happy medium.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Do you ever record the sessions for your students, and then do you do that on gallery view where they would all be seeing each other later, or speaker view?
Yeah, so
Because like when I record on speaker view, I feel like I need to demo more, because when someone watches it later, they're just getting a video of me being like, you know, how's it going, guys?
so the live class experience is where I put my attention.
Yeah.
And if they want, so I ask permission from everybody in the class to record it. And the idea of the recording is for them to be able to go back to remember, how did we do this? Or what was she saying about that? It's not a product in and of itself.
Right.
And so I'm fine with the product not being as ideal as the live experience. If I'm going to offer a recording of a class for people to consume as a recorded class, I'm going to just record that myself. And the whole focus is going to be on the recording. Because what I find is that you can't be all things all at once.
Right.
And so I don't do anything where I'm teaching both in person and to a computer at the same time. I know there are people who do that, but I feel like my attention is either going to be in one place or another. And if it's split, it's a disservice to everybody. And I think the same thing is true if I'm teaching for the live experience and also simultaneously trying to teach for the quality of a recorded experience.
Yeah.
So I think you do one or the other. So yes, I would teach to the people who are there, and then the recording is a little bonus.
I totally agree. And I did a series on a different topic earlier this year where I offered the recordings, but only to the people who had registered.
Right.
Because I really wanted them to feel comfortable that they were being recorded and it wasn't going to go like out to the masses. So I like that approach. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can always do the same thing just alone on Zoom, record that and make it available to anybody else.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Okay, well, it has been a pleasure speaking with you all, and I hope that this serves you, and don't hesitate to reach out with anything else as it arises. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much for this.
Absolutely.